Well, why don't we tell the viewers, listeners.
Hi, guys. Welcome to Asked and Answered.
Why you're so distracted right now. What have we just learned?
So, this is so scary if I ever did ask him on the channel. And he could go back
we
and
can cut this. We're just going to maybe use this.
No. Holly, leave this in. So I was just informed credibly. So after last episode, I went on a digression, as I often do in my life and on this channel, about my love for Scott Galloway, aka Prof G.
Which, by the way, this is now a drinking game. If you hear the term Prof G come up on any Asked and Answered episode, please take a shot.
Take a shot.
Whatever you'd like.
And you know who'd take a shot with you? Prof G. He loves going out for a drink and talking about that every episode. But anyway, I was credibly informed that he was recently sitting in the exact chair in which I'm currently sat. So if you've been wondering why my content is so wonderful lately.
Why she's so distracted.
By osmosis, I'm absorbing his delightful older man energy. But before we get into today's episode of Asked and Answered, I just wanted to quickly give a shout out to Monarch, which is not only the budgeting app that I use every day and found independently after I learned that Mint was going to be shedding off its mortal coil and leaving this world, and I was desperate to find a good Mint replacement. I actually found it by Googling Mint replacement and ended up using it and loving it, and it turns out it is like the number one Mint replacement as voted by users, and it's just all around an absolutely wonderful budgeting app. If you're someone who is looking to get kind of a hold on your money on a day-to-day basis, it is absolutely perfect for that. You can do things like obviously track your net worth. You can share your expenses with other people that you maybe live with or share expenses with otherwise. It's great for day-to-day budgeting, looking back at your purchases, doing long-term goals and planning, and just generally feeling like you have a handle on your money. I literally check my Monarch app compulsively at this point. I check it like 20 times a day because I'm working toward a money goal and it soothes me to look at it. But anyway, they are truly an awesome company. They don't sell any of your data to third parties, which is like pretty rare in this space. And just like the user experience is awesome. It's easy enough for me to use and understand at a glance, which is saying a lot because I'm pretty bad with technology. So anyway, check out Monarch. Please use our link if you want to try it out. And if you use our link, you also get 50% off your first year, which is a pretty good deal. And I'm out here paying full price like a sucker. I got to re-up on that deal. Hi guys, welcome to Asked and Answered, your favorite advice show on the internet. And so we're ending because we talk a lot about relationships, children, all of these things where you're often going through life as a partnership. And one thing that we always want to make sure to give proper love to is doing things solo. So this last episode is about solo finances, me, myself, and I finances. And yeah, although we are not ourselves single Pringles, we definitely have a lot of advice to give in that regard, especially as it pertains to strategizing and wealth building and saving for retirement, because that is no two ways about it, harder to do as a solo person. Although I would say easier to do as a solo person than married to an anchor on your life.
Yes.
Because a lot of people, I think, they underestimate how much of a drain the wrong partner is on your finances. And to that I say, watch Just Getting Good, because it's a parade of that.
Yep.
So, how do you plan financially if you don't know if you'll be single forever but might be? Well, I think you start by realizing everyone might be, including people who are now coupled.
Statistically, women outlive men, so more often than not, all of us will be living single at some point.
I read a fact about that yesterday. Do you know the country that has the largest male-female age gap? Someone's going to have to fact check this because it may be wrong.
No.
Latvia. It's 10 years that women live longer, and do you know why?
No.
Alcoholism.
I thought it was going to be something positive that the women were doing. She's like, the men are just drinking themselves to death. Oh my gosh.
That's true.
Okay.
It's true.
Fact check in. It's true.
Breaking.
Breaking
Sorry,
news.
Latvian men. No, but it's a real thing, right? Like,
yeah.
Statistically, the odds are you'll, as a woman, be alone for at least part of your life.
Which I would also say, in that way, having total control over your financial life and being forced by extension to know where everything is, know how to handle everything, puts you in an advantageous position, because a lot of women are not the CFOs of their household, and therefore when the spouse dies, it is extremely overwhelming to not know how to take over the family finances. So to one, think of yourself as the chief financial officer of your own life. Like, I want everybody to do that, but particularly if you are thinking about how do I plan for my life, assuming that there may never be a second income, a second retirement account, anything else that's going to happen. I have to handle this all on my own. Think about being able to take that from a position of power and control. And then seriously think about the life that you want to live. What does that look like to you? Do you want to own a home? Where do you want to live? What part of the country or in what country? And do the math on how much it's going to take to live the lifestyle that you want to live. And this way, it is no different than coupled people and how they plan for their financial future. You figure out the number that you want to hit, and then you reverse engineer how much you need to save and invest in order to achieve that goal by the point in time you want to be living off of your future nest egg. The math is the same. The part that's harder is the number that you have might be the same number that a couple has, and that potentially is two incomes trying to achieve the same goal. So I am not by any means suggesting that it's the same to achieve, but the thought process and the math is eerily similar.
I would also try to focus on what are the advantages of being single / in many cases childless if you are single. Like, for example, if, Mark and I talk a lot about what we would do if the other person passed, because I think it's helpful if you have anxiety around that to have some kind of a game plan. And like for me, one thing I would probably do is sell my home, because I think that one of the benefits of being by myself is I would want to potentially move around, live in another place, have more flexibility with regards to, work and things like that. I think like thinking as much as possible about what are the advantages of our situation rather than what is the lack of the situation that we don't have is a good way to frame things, and also helps you, kind of I feel like so often we are basing our lives off of comparison and off of a sense of, I think it was Glynis said on her episode of Just Getting Good, we tend to see most easily in others what we lack ourselves. And we're often kind of measuring ourselves by someone else's yardstick. And so I think when we frame single finances in that way, we often frame them in contrast with not just coupled finances, but also good coupled finances. And it's so important to remember that many, if not maybe most, coupled finances are not the healthiest. And often the wrong partner, or even just a partner who's not as committed to financial health as you are, can be a drain. Like, I'm absolutely a drain on my finances husband. On my husband's finances. I'm absolutely a drain. Like, he would be a much wealthier and less stressed out man if I weren't in his life. That's for damn sure.
Okay, but you bring a lot to the table financially too.
Whimsy,
let's
glitter. No, I'm kidding. I do bring a lot, but I'm just saying, like, it's not always a net negative, but like, you have to keep in mind that, like, if you're partnered with someone, there's no guarantee whatsoever that they share your financial outlook, that they share your financial goals, your spending habits, your priorities. This is why in another episode we discussed how important it is to have your own spending money.
Yeah.
So yeah, just not comparing yourself against an ideal that A, doesn't necessarily exist in most cases, but B, is just, regardless of whether or not it exists, it is not the hand that you're playing with.
Because I wanted to say the excellent reframe too is that you get to spend lavishly on what you care about and do not have to compromise for what somebody else cares about. You do not have to be creating a financial plan that incorporates somebody else's values and desires. You get to specifically build a financial plan around spending lavishly on what you care about and tightening up on the things that you care less about so that it evens out. We can't spend lavishly everywhere all the time. Also, as a reminder, it means that you potentially only have to deal with the financial benefit or anchor about your family of origin. You're not then also having to factor in potentially caring for in-laws, nieces and nephews, aunts, uncles, grandparents that you may be married into. Even if a couple handles their money in an excellent way, there still can be exterior forces that means that their financial plan has to morph because they're having to financially support other people. So it is important to consider that there are certain advantages of being single.
Statistically, by far, the most happy women in this country are single and childless. By far. It's not a complicated, Yeah, like, and even, you know, I do think that one thing that we'll hopefully move toward in the next century is more platonic life partners, more like co-living based on, you know, friendship, other forms of community, more intergenerational living, more just like, because there are clearly, when it goes well, tangible benefits to being in a community, big or small. I just don't always necessarily think that the best communities are formed via romantic partnership or, you know, sexual attraction. Like, I don't necessarily know that those are always the most compatible for what it means to be essentially business partners with someone, you know, which is the other side of things like marriage. So yeah, I don't know. Obviously, it's easy to say from the position of being in a marriage. Of course it is. Like, there's no getting around that. But I also think that, like, if you really like, and I've often suspected this, there's no way to verify it, obviously, but I've often suspected that married people are less candid. Like, one thing I know for sure is that the women in my life with children are a lot less candid with me about the difficulties that they experience in motherhood. Not that they're hiding it from me per se, but that, like, I fundamentally can't relate to it. And that is just, maybe you'd be afraid of judgment. You would be afraid of, you know, you would want more to speak to someone who knows what you're going through and has been there, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't take offense to that at all. Frankly, I don't know that kid. You know what I mean? Like, I'm friends with you. I'm not friends with that kid. We'll see. But like, I don't take that personally, because I understand that that's just like, that's not an axis on which our relationship exists. And I often suspect that the same thing might be true for long-term coupled people and single people, that they aren't necessarily going to be as forthcoming with the problems in their marriage or the downsides of it, because they prefer to commiserate with married people.
Or just the monotony and the mundane elements of being in that kind of partnership. That, like, I remember my sister lived with us for a month once when she first moved to New York, and I remember her being like, wow, marriage seems to just be like a lot of planning and discussing what's happening that week and like what you're going to eat. Like, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of monotony in certain elements of building a life together and having a partnership that you communicate a lot. And some of it's just boring, tedious admin type work.
But which, again, I think lends itself really nicely to forming these kind of partnerships for other reasons. Like, I don't know if you've been seeing that couple on TikTok where it's a woman and a gay man who married and had a child together.
I have not, because I'm not on TikTok.
Okay, well, it happened, and they're like, you know, going viral because obviously half the people are like, how could you willingly enter into a lavender marriage? But the other half is like, actually, you guys are best friends. You both want a child. Both of you are single. Why not? Why can't you be a life partner based on things other than romantic partnership?
Of course you can. There was a trend that was getting noticed by mortgage applications. Like, mortgage brokers were seeing, I think about 2-3 years ago, an uptick, not huge, but an uptick, a noticeable uptick in friends buying homes together and like trying to get a mortgage together.
That's a life goal for my husband and I and some of our friends. We want to own a building together at one point in our lives.
Yeah. And they're like, we have seen an actual trend and uptick in that happening, which indicates, one, that our housing market is insane, but two, that, yeah, people are looking to build their community and their life outside of necessarily just traditional marriage.
There's also on TikTok, a group of women who are in like their 60s and above who, like, they basically bought a plot of land and they all built tiny houses on the plot of land.
I've seen those kind of things. That's cool.
So I'm a 28-year-old single white female.
Oh, no.
Graduated debt-free from a prestigious university with a degree in business. I live with a roommate in a 2-bedroom apartment in Chicago, and I'm on the apps. I hit the Whole Foods bar for lunch and the bars on Friday nights. I work for a fintech startup, and I have a little equity in my package. It's remote with occasional work travel that tends to be the highlight of my year at this point. I know that I'm one of the lucky ones, especially in the current job market / economy, but I can't help feeling like everything is just so pointless. Would you consider joining the Peace Corps or something if you were me? I cannot go on one more Hinge date.
No, I would not consider financially blowing up my life and joining the Peace Corps personally.
I mean, I think you should join the Peace Corps if you want to join the Peace Corps.
Sure.
But not as a
way to like eat, pray, love your life.
Yeah, like Elizabeth Gilbert is like famously unwell. Love that diva down, but like she can't stop writing memoirs about her crazy life. Like, I don't know. Blowing up your life is like, I don't know. Rare. I don't know. We have to interrogate more what we are looking to escape, I think.
Secure the bag and then figure out what's next is part of my feeling at that age. Like, save and invest a ton of money to put yourself in a position to be able to take 6 months, a year sabbatical and explore what you want for yourself?
This question says to me that like consumption will never replace meaning, right? Like consumption is a convenient temporary alternative. It's offered to us at every turn. You know, the Whole Foods hot bar is one of those things, right? Like, am I going to pretend I don't effing love the Whole Foods hot bar? Now, post Amazon acquisition, I go substantially less. But that Cabbage Crunch salad and like honey soy chicken or whatever it is, like I would eat that all day, every day if I could. It's like my favorite food combination on the planet. But I'm aware that like the little treatification of life and like constantly outsourcing what you do, what you eat, what you consume, et cetera, like outsourcing everything, like aside from costing a lot more money in the short term than like making your own food, like it does rob you of something. Like it just does. And so do these apps, right? Like dating apps, like irrespective of, and I say this as someone who met my husband 15 years ago now on OkCupid back when it was a website, but like we know the data on these apps, right? Like they're not designed to help you meet the love of your life. They are designed to keep you on the app and specifically to keep you paying more because most of their margins now are made up by like people who pay way more, not by growing. They're actually shrinking because people are getting, just like you're saying, like totally fatigued by them because again, the algorithm is not optimized for you to find happiness and fulfillment. That's a bad business model. And so like when you look at all these different places, whether it's like, you know, not creating situations where you meet people in real life, even if not for romantic intent, even just for like connection and community, where you're on apps all the time, where you're buying, you know, pre-made food, drinking alcohol regularly, which, you know, I'm looking forward to a martini tonight, but am I going to delude myself and say that's good for me? No, like doing all of these things that are consumption based, like it is exactly how our economy wants a 28-year-old gainfully employed woman to be living. But like, it isn't how we become happy. It isn't how we're meant to live. And it's not where we derive meaning.
My inclination, as full disclosure, someone who met her spouse before owning a smartphone and has literally never once been on the apps. So take everything I'm about to say with a huge grain of salt. But my inclination would be to feel that if something is not working and you've tried it a bunch, to stop trying it that way for a while. And instead of quitting the job and doing something more extreme, to try something like don't go on the apps for 6 months, but then every month you are doing a new kind of challenge for yourself, whether it is taking a class that puts you in rooms with people that you want to meet, platonic, romantic, whatever. Asking your friends to set you up on blind dates and go on a series of blind dates for a period of time with people that have been vetted by folks who know you and love you. Taking a trip by yourself, do some solo travel and see what that feels like and just the type of people that you'll meet and what the experience will be. And repurposing the energy that you're spending on the apps to playing around with other things that could bring you enrichment and fulfillment that has maybe nothing to do with trying to find a romantic partner, but everything to do with you yourself exploring and growing and understanding better who you are at this stage of your life, which then just might have an interesting byproduct of ultimately you finding somebody that suits you. But maybe it's also just more about dating yourself and getting to know yourself.
Yeah, we also have to have a slightly higher tolerance for existential discomfort. Like I think we can't jump right into blowing up our lives.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of media that makes it really compelling, which
especially
I think is
geared toward women.
Yeah, which I think is why we tend to drift towards that in moments of the unknown. It's either like go to grad school or quit your job and go do something really dramatic. Those seem to be the two options for people.
And not to take it back to our diva Elizabeth Gilbert, but like I think we were a little young to understand just how much of like an industrial complex Eat, Pray, Love was at the time. Like the cultural impact that it had, the successful brand that it was, the way that it filtered into society. But it's easy to just remember that and forget that she then went and blew up her life a couple more times after that.
Yeah, like, I mean, her most recent book being an excellent
entirely about that. Yeah. And listen, if you made, I don't know, fucking $200 million or whatever she made off of Eat, Pray, Love, I'm sure it was a lot of money.
It was a lot of money.
Go forth and blow up your life as many times as you want, I say. Why not at that point? But most of us will not make a small fortune from quitting everything and moving to a different country, like whether for the Peace Corps or more Emily in Paris style. So I just think that we need to be rational about the opportunity cost that represents financially, but also that like blowing up your life very rarely solves the underlying issue. And chances are when our instinct is to run from something in a very sort of like cut and dry way like that, what it says to me at least, or has historically said to me, is like there's something about the situation that I'm not willing to interrogate in a thoughtful, patient, self-accountable way,
Or that thinking something like that's going to be a solve for the mental health of it all, as opposed to, so like I personally link this back to the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early, for the blissfully uninitiated. No, I think about that all the time, where you're living in a state of deprivation because you're thinking about, well, once I retire young, I'm just going to be so happy. All of my issues are tied up with this work life. And then what tends to happen is you have like 6 months to a year of euphoria, and then all of a sudden all those same little demons come crawling back in other ways. So if you don't address the underlying problem, changing will make you feel better for a period of time, but it's not going to solve it.
As the saying goes, wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah, that's so true.
What's so crazy to just think about is how many people feel these feelings and they're like, you know what I'm going to do? Have a kid.
Back to our last episode. Want them.
But want them.
Yeah.
Not like them. Whatever ambiguous thing they represent to
yes.
you.
Yes.
I really genuinely I know that you are not this person. I'm not talking about you. But I do.
What a buildup.
Especially for like older, like boomer era parents. I'm like, did you guys even conceive when you had children of the children as like existing as fully grown human entities outside of you? Because I feel like for so many boomer parents, they're like, you are an extension of me and will live as such until your death.
The amount of ego that is wrapped up. I don't think that that's gone away, just based on what I see sometimes from people who like to live through their kids vicariously still at our age.
This is like such a like nothing burger, because my husband famously has like a wonderful family. No family is perfect, but like they're like massive windsurfers. And like I love them down, but I am not going to get on a windsurfboard. I don't know if you guys know much about windsurfing, but it's like the least recreational sport in the whole wide world. It's like very difficult and dangerous, and it's just not something you just pick up lightly. But anyway, like my husband is like good at windsurfing because they were like raised in like a windsurf academy, like from, birth, essentially. They were on that board, set and sail. And it's so funny because like he's like, it took me until I was like a fully grown adult, because my parents will to this day be like, you guys grew up, you loved windsurfing. And he's like, I don't think you understand, like those were like the worst memories of my life. Like I every second I was on a windsurf board as a child, I hated it deeply and profoundly. And like, yes, I know how to windsurf now, but like I didn't enjoy that. And it's like, obviously who cares? Like that's such a low stakes thing, but it's like, how many things are that like is happening in that realm on a day-to-day basis everywhere all around us?
Oh, I'm sure so many. Like when we want, like even just like the gender stuff, it's like little girls don't necessarily have to go into like ballet. No, they don't. I famously took ballet for a very short period of time and came home and told my mom this isn't physical enough. Mm-hmm. And she said, you have to go through your first recital and then you can quit and you can play basketball.
I say this as a girly pop who did gymnastics growing up. Don't put girls into gymnastics or ballet. Or at least you got to make sure that they're very, very like body positive gymnastics and ballet, because woo, buddy, like you got to have an iron constitution as a 7-year-old to walk out of those spaces without some really weird body stuff.
Yeah. I'll also mea culpa for my 7-year-old self who said that about ballet, because when I tried tap as an adult, I was like, this is so physical and so hard.
Okay, is an IRA or a Roth IRA more advisable for someone to start in their 40s?
Ooh, in your 40s is a good question, because typically what people like to think of as the advantage for Roth is locking in when you are younger and therefore probably not making as much money and that you're in a lower tax bracket. I would honestly say speak to an accountant / financial advisor to have a holistic look at your tax bracket and your financial situation. A Roth, you are contributing to the account with your post-tax dollars. So you've already paid the taxes. You do not get a tax break today. But it grows tax-free in the sense that in retirement, so at 59 and a half and older, you can take that money out without having to pay taxes on it, which can be a really big win. The other perk to a Roth IRA is that because you have contributed to that account with post-tax dollars, you can also take your contributions out without a tax penalty before you get to 59 and a half. So not the growth, not what it has earned over time, but the contributions.
Yep.
So if you are consistently, like, one thing that I like to think about for a Roth is, like, technically you could think about that as a college savings fund for a kid, because if you're contributing to it every year, especially if you're maxing it out, you can take out those contributions in the future. That is only if it is supplemental to another retirement account you already have. Please do not be draining your primary retirement accounts for your kids. But what I like is, compared to like a 529 plan with a Roth, it's for you, it's for your retirement. So if your kid ends up choosing not to go to college or getting a full ride or whatever other option that's going to exist in the future, then it's not locked up into a 529 plan that has to be used for qualifying educational expenses, or you have to go through a whole rigmarole to get it out. I like that you're still kind of setting yourself up with the option to maybe use it for something else. A traditional IRA, you are just putting that money in pre-tax, so you get the tax benefit today, but you'll have to pay taxes on it in the future. So the question kind of becomes, when do you think you will be in a higher tax bracket, or when overall will taxes be higher now or in the future? And you try to play the game of when it's going to be most advantageous. There's no easy answer. I would talk to an accountant or a CFP.
What advice would you give to someone about to move out on their own for the first time in this economy?
Diversify your income streams. Like, I really would think a lot about, especially if you're living on your own, how can you lower your housing expenses as much as possible within reason, like living in a comfortable situation. But if you feel comfortable having a roommate, do it. Save that extra amount of money. Now, if you're somebody who just cherishes and values being by yourself and you need that space, okay, great. You're paying a premium for housing. Where else are you pulling back? But if you're somebody who doesn't mind cohabitating, that is such low-hanging fruit as a way to bolster up other financial goals of yours. Gives you a little breathing room in other areas. So housing is just the first one that I would really think about focusing on. Especially, it sounds like you're moving out of probably your parents' house where you haven't been maybe paying rent, or if you have, it's probably not been market value. And doing a real analysis of how much are you earning and how much in where you're moving to or where you're going to live is it really going to cost. Like, truly understand. And while you're still living at your parents' house, try living under those real budget conditions for yourself. Simulate this budget. The amount that you think you'll spend in rent, put aside into savings and experience living off of the rest of that money.
I would also say, and this sort of refers back to the earlier question from the 28-year-old, almost everywhere you pay dearly for convenience. Anytime you're paying for someone else to do something for you, to make something for you, to fix something for you, there's going to be a big premium, right? Like, and it's something as simple as like not being willing to go to the corner store and pick up your own coffee. That's going to triple the price of your coffee, you know? And that extends to almost every aspect of your life. Like, another thing is like, if you absolutely want this couch right now delivered and set up in your home, like, it's going to cost you 3 times as much than if you wait to find the right one on Facebook Marketplace and, you know, move it with a couple friends. Now, I know some of you are going to be like, the bed bugs. Okay, so we'll say table. Table.
I'm not saying the BB word.
I've spoken them into existence. No, but like, I think, and this is something that I'm thinking about quite a lot in my own life too, is where are the areas where a lack of patience is costing me, literally and figuratively. And those are just 2 examples, but like remembering that, like, being able to differentiate in your mind between what is a nice to have and a need to have, and to let some needs pass, or let some nice to haves pass. There's like a trend right now on TikTok of like people just recording themselves every time they want something instead of actually going out and buying it. And it makes for very funny little like collage videos. But it's also a good reminder that, like, we can want things and not act on them. And that in everywhere where we are willing to enact patience or our own labor is areas where we'll generally save. So really deciding where are the few and far between places that you're really willing to pay that premium. I've been really trying to get much, much better about Ubers. We're down month over month yet again, so that's great. But there's, that's a convenience that it's easy to sort of justify to myself because I haven't driven a car in 10 years. Do you know what I mean? So like, there's definitely like everyone's is going to be different, but identifying the places in which you can go without sacrificing too much on quality of life is crucial because we live in an economy, to your point about the economy, like our economy is more oriented than ever towards indebting people over small amounts. And most of that is going to be based on unnecessary purchases.
And that's why you should not use any buy now, pay later applications for small purchases or most big purchases. And I'll give you like maybe one if you really do the math and it's cash flow and not actually going to put you into debt. But by and large, don't get it tangled up with those too when you move out.
Even the Delta program isn't worth it anymore. You know who I want to have on here is Ed Bastian, CEO of Delta.
St. Bonaventure University alum.
Why are you kidding?
Nope. He is.
I don't know what's more sinister. Me knowing the government name of the Delta CEO.
I know exactly what that man's name is.
Or you knowing that he went to your college, your random ass college.
That's tiny, so it's a big deal.
This is like my friend Ashley. Anytime I hang out with her, not one thing I can say that's from Indiana will go past her without being like, Hoosier.
Pacer.
Hoosier. I've learned so many things are from Indiana.
Corn.
Among many others.
Good basketball talent. Larry Bird.
Doing everything on my own, do I need a financial advisor? And if so, how do I vet them?
First of all, if you are single, it is just as important to work with a certified financial planner who is, my preference would be, a fee-only fiduciary. CFPs are required to be fiduciaries, but not all financial planners are fiduciaries. And a fiduciary simply means they act to a standard that it requires them to act in your best interest. It is really important to note that the term financial planner is not a regulated term in our country, which means that a lot of different people can use the term financial planner or financial advisor when they have all sorts of various types of credentials. So somebody who is an insurance salesperson could use the term financial advisor as they try to sell you an insurance policy. Make sure that you understand how your financial planner earns their money. And the reason I like fee only is it keeps it cut and dry. You are paying them a fee and they are giving you a service. If they earn any sort of commission, what do you think that incentivizes them to do? To sell you the products that are going to earn them the biggest commission. So that is why I'm a fan of CFPs, which is a designation that you actually have to go through education and standards in order to achieve and hold, as opposed to passing a test and being able to call yourself a financial planner. So that's my stump speech on that. But when it comes to vetting someone, there are a few different things that you can do. Asking for referrals is certainly helpful. Understand how they get paid. Ask them directly. Ask them if they are a fiduciary. But then also go to things like FINRA, FINRA. It's a regulatory body. They have a tool called Broker Check. So if you just Google FINRA Broker Check, I think it's brokercheck.org. We can fact check that. Just put in the person's name and it will come up and say whether or not they have any sort of disciplinary actions against them, if they actually hold the credentials that they are claiming that they hold. So it's a way that you can really vet a person and make sure that they are performing the services that, or actually have the credentials that they say they do. The other thing to consider, finding a financial planner is a little bit like finding a therapist, in that you should date around until you find somebody that you're comfortable with. Do not just go necessarily with the first person that you found or was recommended to you. You want somebody who takes you seriously, somebody who has expertise in areas of concern for you. So if you are somebody who is really thinking about how do I design a financial plan as a single person, find someone who has expertise in that, who doesn't exclusively work with married couples, who is never going to talk down to you or say something like, well, when you get married, same thing, like you don't want to work with somebody who's going to be like, well, you're married, of course you'll have kids. So when you have kids, we have to plan for this. If you're somebody who has elected that that is not a path that you want to take in life. So it's totally fine to take some meetings, date around until you find the person that works best for you. If you happen to be in a partnership at any point, it's very important that the financial planner speaks to both of you in a way that feels respectful and equitable and is not just speaking to one person in the party. And that is my stump speech on financial planning.
Got the same rules for finding a good financial advisor as a single woman is finding a good OBGYN. They can't be giving you the drama about like, well, once you have kids. Are you sure? You know, all of that's true. I don't think that whether or not you get a financial advisor should really be based on marital status. The people who benefit from a financial planner, a CFP, do you have one?
No, I need to. It's on my to-do list for 2026.
I mean, listen, it is an expense, right? Like it is, it can range on the low end, a couple grand a year, on the high end. I mean, there's basically no limit, right? Like people who have family offices and stuff, people who have like billions and billions of dollars, they pay out Lord only knows what amount for people to manage that money. There's levels to it, like there is to everything. But for the average person, like if you are willing, like whether or not it makes sense for you to spend a few $100s a month on someone to help you plan your finances totally depends on a few factors. But like with any professional service, what you are primarily doing is buying back your time and also outsourcing to some extent your expertise. Like, for example, like I have always worked with an accountant for my taxes from the second I started working because I worked freelance. And I was like, the risk of like making a mistake on my taxes is like massively high, and the potential savings from someone knowing in and out, like knowing the tax code inside and out and understanding what is and isn't like tax deductible and what my statuses are and all of that, like the benefit of that is so potentially high that like it's worth it to pay the, I don't know, $1,000 or whatever a year. That was an easy calculation. Also, it's like an immense amount of time that I don't have to deal with it. I just like hand off the documents and I just have to review it at the end. So that's one example. Lawyer, similarly, like for me, anything I do that involves a contract, that goes right to a lawyer because I'm like, the risk of me not understanding this contract is extremely high. I'd rather pay $500 or whatever to have them give it a once over, give me their thoughts, blah, 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 blah. And also sometimes it can help in terms of negotiation. Financial planner is a similar thing, right? Like if you want to dedicate, I don't know, 10, 15 hours a month to really thoroughly managing your own finances, you know, deciding where you want to allocate your portfolio, deciding how you want to respond to market changes, deciding where you want to put your money, what your pacing should be for all your different goals. Like these are all things that you can do by yourself, but like I said, you're outsourcing partially the time. But you're also mostly outsourcing, again, that sense of expertise of like, do they know inherently better than you? No, but often when you're making the decision that's right for you, it's very, very helpful to have another party in the room who's not as emotionally involved, who can give you a more bird's eye view on how macro forces are impacting your individual decisions. And yeah, who can just be another adult voice in the room. Like we get from our advisor, we get their like weekly like internal memo about the economy, and it's like very interesting to read that, and also interesting to like get his view on everything from a more sort of like factual macroeconomic perspective. But not everyone benefits from that, and for some people they would rather do it all themselves, trust only, keep their own counsel, and save the money every year, and that's totally valid too. But that doesn't it's not based on whether or not you're single.
No, it's not. I will also say, on the expertise front, unless you're in it, like you really enjoy understanding investing, understanding how to research, all of that, you certainly can acquire the expertise. But if you haven't been that interested in personal finance and you're like, you make good money but you're still kind of trying to figure things out, you're also paying for expertise in the beginning of using a financial planner. I do think the third party, neutral, objective instead of subjective voice in the room is what gets really important. I would say for me, up until this point, a large part of the reason we haven't hired someone is because I enjoy doing a lot of that work. I enjoy handling a lot of our investing, but as our life has become a little more complicated just in the byproduct of having a child, I would like somebody else to be gut checking me to make sure that the way that I conceive of and think about certain things financially is the most beneficial. And I would like to work with somebody who can present a few different options and plans for making sure that I am setting up our finances to prioritize us, as in my husband and I, into retirement, but then also making sure that we're setting up our child to maybe be able to go to college without taking on debt, or being able to have down payment on a home should she wish in the future. Like, if we're able to do those things, I want to make sure that I'm doing it in the most advantageous way possible. And my gut instinct might not actually be the one that makes the most sense.
Famously, my husband and I kind of bet against the U.S. market this year. We weren't feeling bullish on her, and we were wrong. And the financial advisor was like, I don't know about this one, guys, but the two chuckleheads on this side of the laptop were like, we know. And we were wrong. And we didn't, but that's all. I think also, like, once you get to the place of being able to diversify your portfolio and make, because it's not also like a lot of how you invest, and this is like getting a little in the weeds for like once you reach a place of like being able to have like a true investment strategy, like a lot of investment, ultimately, unless you're engaging in insider trading, like no one knows for sure, right? Like that's kind of the fundamental principle of the market, is that like unless you have privileged information, which is famously a white collar crime that actually sends people to prison, unless you're engaging based on privileged information, you're making an educated guess that's based on the market, but it's also based on like how you feel about things and what your priorities are, and to some extent what you want to be investing in. A lot of people will dedicate part of their portfolio to investing just in companies that they believe in, like individual stocks, which generally I don't really engage in, don't advise. But once you reach a certain place in your overall wealth building strategy, like that's something that you can do. You can say, I take, let's say 5% of my portfolio and I just buy stock in companies that I really, really like and want to see thrive. And so I think also, although a financial advisor will never be able to tell you what is right and wrong, it is very helpful to have someone who is having those conversations with a whole portfolio full of people every day, because it also helps you to really differentiate what is your personal bias versus what is like genuine sort of market trends.
Yep.
Because often we only see what we kind of seek out, and we tend to overvalue the things that are important to us and really miss out on kind of what's happening in the bigger picture.
Yeah. And if you're someone who has perhaps a unique financial situation, for instance, my husband has access to a pension, which is largely unheard of for millennials. But the way they function is kind of complicated. So also working with somebody, like if and when we hire a financial advisor, it will be somebody who also understands how his specific type of pension works, which narrows the field of people we can work with significantly. But we want to make sure we work with somebody who understands the specificities of how his works, so we make sure that we're incorporating it correctly into our overall financial plan. So if you have very niche things that you have to consider, include that in the vetting process of somebody you want to work with.
Lastly, remember that if your company offers you a financial planner to work with, that generally speaking, they work for the company, not for you. And their incentive structure is going to be more based on what benefits the company than you, especially for things like insurance.
Yep.
Be very, very careful about working with a company-provided planner. Don't trust a hoe. It's been another great season.
Yes.
With Ms. Lowry by my side.
We just always have so much fun.
We just have a hoot in here.
And thanks
Talk
for
about
asking.
Two chuckleheads.
Yeah. Talk about these two chuckleheads.
Thanks for asking about what?
No, they just ask great questions this season.
They just ask. Oh, you're saying thanks for asking.
Thanks for asking these things.
What are you doing this spring? Where are you going?
I don't know. It's January.
When this airs, it will be like March.
One big life adjustment for me is I think a big change in how we normally travel, and that the somewhat tragic realization that travel is certainly no longer as easy as it used to be, and trying to decide what that means for what types of trips we're going to take. But what I am excited to focus on, I have a life goal of what I'm calling 50 by 50, which is to hit all 50 states by the time I turn 50, and I only have 12 to go. So I think we are going to knock out one of my 12 in April as like a fun little family trip.
Go?
We're not entirely sure yet, but it will. So it has to be one I haven't been to that has a direct flight on Delta from New York, because I have a companion pass that I want to use by the end of April. I really want to do New Mexico, but there are no direct flights.
Girl, do not go to New Mexico without me, because that is like one of my all-time, like, I must bucket list. I want to go to New Mexico so bad.
I'm so
But I'm
fascinated.
only going when I get a big check, because I am staying at, and I'm budgeting for 2 because I'm taking someone with me.
Okay.
I am staying at like the nicest, I think might be a Four Seasons, but there's this hotel in like Taos, New Mexico that I have seen pop up on my feed. It's like calling to me. Now, listen, I need to
do
make
a hot air balloon there.
I don't want to do that, but
Okay.
you can do it. No, now we're both going on this trip. No, but Taos, New Mexico seems like the coolest place. I really want to go so bad.
Yeah. Spring-wise, I'll also say, well,
For
on
sure.
a fun, and I'm not going to say too much now because it has not totally come to fruition, but I do have some fun work stuff that I'm working on. For those of you who are in New York, subscribe to my newsletter, follow me on Instagram, because I have some in-person stuff I'll tell you off mic, but like some fun in-person event thing that I'm working on for this year.
I love that.
And
Also,
I want to, Q2 is my goal for it, so it'd be early spring.
lastly, don't undersell my girl, your daughter, whose name we don't publicize. She came to France last year and she was an absolute delight.
She has historically been a pretty good traveler, but we are trying to be eyes wide open about the fact that she'll be close to 2.
That's demon age.
She changes a lot every month. Very mobile now. So flight shouldn't be too long. And it also kind of needs to be a place where I'm not going to feel like I'm missing out once I'm sort of sequestered to my hotel after 8 p.m. because she has to go to bed.
Period. Okay.
Yeah.
This has been Asked and Answered. 6 weeks with you guys. We did it.
We did it, Chelsea.
We did it. Erin famously has a lot of newsletters.
Two newsletters.
Say the names. They're linked.
All right. You don't have to sound such a bummer about it. brokemillennial.substack.com, where you will find hopefully helpful, not broke millennial newsletter, where I give advice about all sorts of things, including money, parenting, relationships, whatever's on my mind that week. And then my name is mom at erinlowry.substack.com, where I talk all about the identity shift that is motherhood.
And I'll see you guys around the channel and elsewhere. Bye, everyone.